Welcome to Minerva, a monthly show where we discuss the mysteries. We hope to give you enough information that you can go away and do your own study. I'd like to introduce my co-host Duncan.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about Cicada 3301. Now, Cicada 3301 is the name of either a group or a person or the puzzle. But what it essentially is a puzzle that was posted online in 2012 on a website called 4chan, where a picture was posted inviting people to follow a puzzle. Now, this invitation said they were looking for the best and the brightest. And the picture essentially had some hidden code within it, which had to be deciphered in a certain way. But what we're not going to do today is discuss the way in which people deciphered it. What we're going to do is discuss the overall tone of Cicada and who they are. So this puzzle was also posted in 2013 and 2014, but has since stopped, although there are question marks over whether or not Cicada have put other things out there. What makes it quite interesting to me is that what started as an internet, treasure hunt, so to speak, for somebody to be able to sit at home on their computer and follow this thing and be, looking at ciphers and trying to crack codes, actually turned at some point into the real world. At one point they were asked to go out to real world locations and see posters which had been put up, which gave them some further information. Now, the themes of Cicada and going through the way they've had to crack these puzzles is anything from esotericism, Zen, philosophy, these great mysteries which we've always talked about, but also bringing in people like Crowley and Flood and other interesting characters that fall into the category which we normally talk about in regards to the mysteries. So the first question is, who are Cicada? And I think some of the names that have been banded around are the obvious ones like Apple, Microsoft, and Google, who may be looking for the best and brightest to come and work for them. They want people that can do these types of things for them, to be able to help them create new technology. It could also be the government for similar reasons, or for anti-terrorism, and they're trying again to find people, instead of going the traditional routes, maybe there are people with those skill sets that haven't gone to university or haven't, gone that way. So this is a clever way of trying to entice them into a job. It could be a hacking group. That's something that's been put out there many times. It could be a cult, and we'll move into that in the future. But what do you think?
Well, first thing, I hadn't heard of this until you mentioned it a few months ago. And so for me, it really was a case of, right, what is this? What do I need to learn? What do I need to look at? And you're right, it's absolutely captivating. Even, I know I'm the residential cynic in this sort of thing, but it was very interesting to see.
And this is the sort of thing that I'll occasionally ping over to you and say, what do you know about this? And normally you come back with loads of information, and you said, I don't know what it is.
Exactly. So it was great to see something afresh. But as you say, there's certain snippets in there which are familiar to us.
Of course.
And the interesting thing is like you're saying things about is it to recruit people from this perspective, and the interesting thing is because when you talk about Flood, Crowley, and all those other things, it invokes something different to you than it does to me.
Of course.
Yeah. And so, of course, if they're trying to attract someone, out of the two of us, what impression are they trying to attract?
Definitely.
And if they're intellectual, they know that there's going to be a difference between a person like you sees and something like I see. But then I've fallen into the trap of I've instantly used the plural, they. I'm not convinced actually that it is a they. I've got a feeling that it's just a singular person for various reasons. One's you've got cicada is singular. It's not plural. So whatever image it's trying to portray, unless it's trying to convey a singularity as a group. Yeah. But it's a little pointer on there. But also, to use one of the examples, the works of William Blake is it's not just once or twice. It's quite a regular character used in the first material that was put out. And Blake, like all the other characters, is so open to interpretation. And it's normally, if you like a poet, you like a particular poet. It's kind of the case that does everybody in this group happen to really like William Blake's work? Or because again, it's one of those characters that you'll have an opinion, I'd have an opinion, and because it's poetry, that goes even further. So for me, it feels a lot more like an individual. There was something else I was going to say on there, but I'll come back to it. But no, I don't think it's a group. I think it's one person.
Okay. I mean, I believe that there's probably too much work there for it to be one person. It's putting these things together is very difficult. And I know it's much easier to put a puzzle together in the sense of creating something than it is to kind of, unravel it. But in my opinion, I think it is a secret society, but a modern secret society. If you look back at the Rosicrucians and how the Rosicrucians started, it was a group of people that had an ideology, and this is one theory, but a group of people that had an ideology which put together a pamphlet and sent it out and started to get people's juices flowing about the topics they were talking about.
Yeah.
But essentially what they did was they said, this is what we're doing and this is our philosophy and this is what we're interested in. But we're not going to tell you where we are or how to find us. If you do the right things, you'll be invited into the society. And this has a real echo of that, of them coming out and saying, if you can follow this path, if you can tread the way that we would like you to, then we'll invite you in. And they do say in that first message, we look forward to meeting those who can crack the code or those that can pass through. So I think for me there's that element of times gone by with a secret society and perhaps they're emulating that in some way.
It's possible. It is possible. But the thing is, my interest is a sense of how you're captivated by it from that very thing, the same way you're captivated and how you interpret how the Rosicrucians came about. Yeah. We both understand that it could have just been for a pamphlet to, hey, let's have a giggle, let's see what we can get people to follow us. Yeah. But the similarity between its process and the characters involved seems to attract you.
Yes.
And people like-minded like yourself. So if I was, say, an artiste and was interested in the same thing as you were, I wanted to write my own little Rosicrucian-like way, how would I do it in the modern world? I'll use the internet.
Of course.
I'll use a little bit of the cryptic things to get your juices going.
Definitely.
Mine are, I'm interested because I'm the resident cynic. All right, what can I pull apart here?
Yeah.
You, though, do you know what? I'd love to do this. This is my modern Rosicrucian.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that he has actually anything special to offer. Maybe he's just literally offering a puzzle unique to you, exactly what your people really like to enjoy doing it, and offers it. And I disagree with the concept that there's so much work in there that it must be more than one person. I think the opposite. If you're writing a puzzle to be decided, you have your one track. It's a lot easier for one person to go, okay, that's the path I want to make sure. If several people are doing it, hey, you've got to have those several intellects making sure that path is a straight line. It's a lot easier for one person to do it than a group.
No, that is a good point. Before we get on to the book that they produced, what do you think the point of Cicada is? I mean, is there a raison d'etre? Do you think this is just a guy having a laugh, or do you think there is something more sinister to it?
Do you know, that's where my intrigue has come from. This, I know I've almost mockingly turned around and said, I think it's a product for you guys to go and enjoy. And look, we've got a modern Rosicrucians. Yeah. But I can't deny that there is. I'm not just washing it off with that sort of Dungeons and Dragons like theory.
Yeah, it's very difficult to, because it is quite watertight.
Yeah, it is very cleverly done. I mean, there's certain things I've looked at where they've done part of the puzzle and somebody else has tried to replicate it, and then see, I've done it again. He or she has written something. They said, look, don't follow this. If it doesn't have this code with it, it's not authentic. Yeah,
there's an encryption type service that they use, and the only way to replicate that is for the real user to have the key and both parts. Yeah. So they've made a way in which you know if it is Cicada or not. Yeah. So, and I think that is very, very clever, because there are copycats, and there still have been lots of copycats. Yeah. But everybody goes back to that. Well, if you can't produce the key, then we won't believe it's you.
But on that point, I mean, asking about what it is. From a marketing perspective, I like the word cicada because, of course, as an anecdote, with the letters and the rhythm of the letters, it's a good marketing one. I'm curious about why choosing it, in the sense of, from both our perspectives.
Yeah.
Is it because of it is a cricket, and like crickets, it communicates by a song, but that's almost kind of like a binary code, isn't it?
Yes.
Because it's the two sounds.
Yeah.
So you kind of think of that. But I'm curious about the choice of numbers.
Of course.
Now, this is where I don't know if it's intentional or not, or if I'm just barking up a tree. I mean, it was, about the Americans and their executive orders?
Yes.
Yeah. Executive Order number 3301 is actually a civil service memorandum about recruitment in the US government.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't want to believe it.
That's pretty good, though.
It is like a coincidence, but I can't find anything else significant by 3301.
No, I mean one of the theories I've seen banded around is 33's a very enigmatic number, and we go into that. But occult-wise, 33 is often used, and 01 is also kind of duality as well.
Yeah,
0
yeah.
and 1, and 01 being binary, etc. So you can break them down and offer a solution, but 3,301.
Yeah.
Why? It is interesting, and again, that's something that hasn't really come to light because people have just been narrowly looking at the puzzles, really.
But that's the incredible, because I remember a chap by the name of Ericsson apparently got all the way through to the puzzle, and looking at the route, it seemed like, how did you get there?
Yeah.
But there's no denying that the path he took was correct and goes in there, which when we talk about what appears to be an ambiguity in like 3-3, could be this, 01 could be that, there is a clear path that actually goes through, no matter how bizarre it goes. Once you're actually on it, you definitely know you're on that path. And it's not like a case of there's the beginning, there's the end. They have regular stop-offs all the way through. It is a very ingenious system.
And what's so interesting is the disciplines change so quickly. So 1 minute you'll be looking at almost hacking in a sense, but be able to draw pieces of code out and work with them. Later on, you'll be given pieces of music.
Yeah.
Which you then need to attribute against something else, against the picture, etc., to be able to work it out. So it's incredibly tough, and I think whoever's put it together has got to be.
They use who? That's a singular.
Yes. Well, my real thought is that there is a group, but they're probably working on bits of it together and then piecing it together. But again, we'll probably never know. One thing that does become more interesting and has become more interesting over time is that they created a book.
Yeah.
There is a book called the Liber Primus, which is the first book. And instantly, this is all written in runes, so this has had to be decoded. And I think most of the books decoded now are certain there's portions of it which are decoded. But once you start reading it, it starts to become quite dogmatic, which for me, in following this, was a turn left. Because I felt that it was a kind of geeky internet puzzle and there wasn't really anything behind it. And all of a sudden there becomes this dogmatic tone where the book is telling them what is actually happening. And the book is telling them about themselves and about what the group or the person believes. And I think that's quite interesting. So I'd like to read an extract from the Liber Primus, which is the first book, which was released to people once they got to a certain part of the puzzle. It starts off, a warning. Believe nothing from this book except what you know to be true. Test the knowledge. Find your truth. Experience your death. Do not edit or change this book or the message contained within it. Either the words or those numbers. For all is sacred. Now, for me, that's quite dogmatic for what I originally thought was a geeky internet puzzle.
Well, actually, I'm just when you're saying that, when they say about don't change the words or numbers. Words I can understand in the sense of you keep the clarity of what's actually said there. Curious about the numbers.
Definitely.
I wonder if we're looking at a biblical reference.
We could be, or it could be that there are further codes within the book.
Yes, yeah.
Which the numbers need to remain for you to be able to extract those parts.
Yeah, but it's as you say, it goes definitely down the line of intrigue. Yeah.
It carries on, so there are lots of different pages within it, and they haven't all been deciphered, but the second page has, which says, welcome. It says, welcome again. There's welcome, pilgrim, to the great journey towards the end of all things. It is not an easy trip, but for those who find their way here, it is a necessary one. Along the way, you will find an end to all struggle and suffering. Your innocence, your illusions, your certainty, and your reality, ultimately, you will discover an end to self. Now, when we go back to the first passage I read, when I read about the death, I kind of maybe see that as the death of ego, but I do wonder if that's because I've got rose-tinted glasses for this type of work. And I'm quite used to reading those things where it's aimed at a death of ego and becoming one with everything. But I do wonder about the people this is aimed at, which is not me, because I don't have the skills necessary.
Same here.
And I wonder if they read it as death of ego, and again, that second paragraph starts to become even more true when it says, the death of self.
Possibly, but it's... As you said, we talk about the William Blake aspect that's going in there. When you're looking at something finite, which of course, if you're looking for a singular answer, you don't use the word truth. Truth is, in its sense, is kind of rather abstract in the way that you're saying, in the sense of where we're talking about death, we're talking about an abstract death in the sense of death of ego, which seems to be similar when the phrase of truth is being used. Definitely. It's not giving you a finite part. The other word I find curious to use is the word easy. It's quite an enigmatic language until it comes to us almost a street-like way. This ain't going to be easy. It seems so out of place.
It does, but again, maybe that's the mixture of this feeling of modern and old.
Yes,
There's that there is that richness within the language, I think.
Well, richness, and then just drops in such a almost colloquial-like phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I won't read the whole book, but there's a third page which is also quite interesting. And again, we're going back to this pilgrimage, which will be interesting to discuss afterwards. But it is through this pilgrimage that we shape ourselves and our realities. Journey deep within, and you will arrive outside. Like the insula, it is only through going within that we may emerge wisdom. You are being until yourself. You are a law unto yourself. Each intelligence is holy, and for all that lives is holy. An instruction, command your own self.
God, it's like a mixture between Rights of Man and Thomas Paine on one side, and the other side we're looking down the sense. Go back to Robert Fudd and Crowley sort of thing. There's
definitely a feeling of Crowley in there. I know they do use him earlier on in the puzzles, but there is a feeling of Crowley in there because of the word law being used, which always throws that up. But also just the fact that it's all about the law and the self and being until yourself, and there just seems to be a pattern of that behaviour.
Definitely.
I think it's incredibly interesting, and I don't know where it will go next. If, as I say, it's been quiet for a while, but they have said nothing will happen until this whole book has been decoded, and it hasn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they've got it. So we don't even know if there's a second book. It's called the first book. We don't know if there is actually a second.
I don't believe that's been, as far as I'm aware, that hasn't been released yet. So there is this first book, but it's still yet to be decoded. And I believe when they put the book out there, it was said that until this is done, nothing else would be. So again, we come back to that discussion of if this is a group of people, if it's one person. I get the kind of feeling sometimes that it's just, as you say, if it's one guy, he's got bored of it and he's moved on to something else.
Possibly, or he's just waiting for this stage to be done. He's been patient enough to get to this part. It is. Part of me thinks it could literally just be a work of art in itself, a modern work of art. Of course. It's as poetic as William Blake. It has the intrigue of Crowley, etc. It's bringing in modernisms with like the Rights of Man. I think it's a work of art being beautifully executed. I'm just not clever enough to solve it.
Likewise, but what it has done is given us a great discussion.
Oh, indeed, fabulous! Thanks for introducing it.
And if anything happens, we'll surely dip in again and
definitely
discuss that. So thanks very much for watching. It's been a really interesting episode. Please like, subscribe, but leave your comments and let us know what you think about Cicada 3301. It'd be really interesting to hear other people's thoughts. Thank you very much.